Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 14th episode of The Inbox, where you ask questions and I answer them. So, with the first question for today, we've got Andrew Harlan saying, well, we only have one character save. If we have more than one, we'll each start with the package we bought. If we can start over if we wanted to, would we start with that package as well? As far as I know, we're not necessarily having character saves per se. Your character has a set number of times that once you die, you can then, once you die and are rejuvenated or revived, or have body parts replaced, then you officially perma-die. And then your next of kin is your next character. So you're not necessarily going to die and then just start back fresh where you were a couple months ago. It's going to be very much almost like a family tree of playing. So if you want to talk about, like, if you have multiple characters, it's going to be the same story. Character A lives until they die, and then it's their next of kin. If you have a second character, that person lives until they permanently die, and then there's the next of kin. We may have, like, one option to permanently wipe the account or something like that, but I think they're really striving for continuity, and I wouldn't expect to have that in place. Denutter 2012 says, have the prices of ships raised? I was holding off buying for a bit, but I checked back recently and everything seems more expensive. No, the prices haven't necessarily increased. It may just be based on what you're actually looking at. Now, what you're probably seeing is the price for game packages has increased. If you're talking about wanting to buy Squadron 42, which is the campaign, and buy Star Citizen, which is going to be, the open world MMO. So with that in mind, what they ended up doing was they split those out. So if a package beforehand was $45, and that included, that was including everything. That was including MMO and the campaign. Now what it is it's still $45, but if you decide to get just the campaign portion of it and the ship that comes with it, you end up needing to spend an additional $15 to then get into the MMO, or vice versa. So in that regard, yes, the prices have increased a little bit. As far as the ships are concerned, like standalone ships, they haven't really increased. However, when ships go from concept to hangar ready, we're supposed to see a little increase in price. And then when they go from hangar ready to flight ready, we're supposed to see an increase in price. Kind of encouraging people to get in and buy the game earlier and support the ships to kind of support development. Craig Nelson says, could a close proximity ship explosion, heat sig, draw the attention of an incoming missile? I would say absolutely, that's probably going to be the case. If any of you have actually played a squadron battle in Arena Commander, sometimes your missile will land on a friendly ship because it just gets confused and hits the wrong ship, and that makes me think that there's some mechanics in game that make the missiles follow the greatest heat source if you're using an IR missile. That's part of the reason why things like flares work. So yes, I think that's absolutely a possibility. George Dieth says, I'm thinking about joining PXP if possible. I can't do anything for a while. Still hope there's places for the role I want to play in the org. The role I want to play is support other transport ships and blah. I'm going to stop you there because it's a long question. But the answer is yes. We're recruiting. We've got spots available. And as far as your role goes, we've got roles for everything. We're over 1,000 people organization. We've got... we're going to probably have a transport wing, a mining wing, an escort wing, a bounty hunting wing, just all sorts of stuff like that. About the only thing we're not accepting right now is known people that want to play as a pirate, or that want to do illegal activities, because the reputation system is one to where if you've got a nasty reputation and you're in maybe my ship, that could potentially mean that people are coming for you, which puts me and my ship and our operation as an organization at risk. So right now, we're not accepting piracy, but every other role, if you've got an interest, we got a spot. Jim Castor, on cargo, how will we be able to, like a whole E, be able to haul for players at once? Basically, if you own a whole E, could you haul cargo for like 6 other players in game? And I think the answer there is yes. Ultimately, what's going to happen is you can kind of work out deals with other players. So you say, I've got this ship, you've got the cargo. I will take a hauling fee. I'm going to charge you 20,000 UEC to take it from Terra to Sol. The goods are yours once they get there, so then that person then sells them. You can kind of work out the details on how that's going to work. You could even buy the cargo from the person, sell it, and then pay them a cut. There's different ways that you can organize that. I'm not sure how the in-game mechanics are going to work, but there's absolutely going to be ways for you to be able to coordinate those types of things with other players. And also, will cargo have to be labeled such as cold storage, fragile, or read warning label on sex bot before using, flip switch to proper sex before using? Interesting flair there at the end. I like it. I can't confidently say we're going to see that because we don't see it in game with cargo stuff today. Now, cargo hasn't really been implemented, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a certain degree of realism where we see things like if it's a box of munitions, it probably says caution, explosive or something like that. Silver Fox, hey Youngblood, great channel. Really enjoy watching all your content. Thank you. It seems like Chris Roberts is going for a fair amount of realism with player creation, and just characters in general. For example, they respawn or replace damaged body parts before the character dies. My question is, do you think whether or not characters will experience fatigue to the point they have to sleep? And if so, would we be able to play another character in the meantime? So with this, it's something that I think CIG's gone back and forth on a little bit. The ships have beds for a purpose, and I think it's supposed to be so your character can actually get rest. Now, CIG's stance has always been, we want to be realistic to a point, but we don't want to make people, feel tedious about doing things in game. So you shouldn't expect to have to make your character sleep for a real life 8 hours. There may be a point to where your character has to sleep 30 minutes for every 4 hours of game time or 6 hours of game time or something like that. But I think what you'll see in game is something a little bit more conducive to long play sessions where you're going to enjoy yourself. Maybe even logging out considers sleep. Now, I don't think you're going to be held hostage. If you've got multiple characters and one needs to sleep and you want to flip over and play the other one, I don't think there's going to be anything stopping you from doing that. But I don't think there's going to be anything you really need to worry about as far as it really kind of ruining your game, your fun in the game. Narpus Sword says, I'm considering melting my Stalker in favor of the Titan, but I can't necessarily tell if there will be a difference in maneuverability. How will removing the stasis pods remove some weight, thus making the ship more nimble? What we see in game right now doesn't seem to reflect anything. But I think what we're going to see, and we know it's going to be in game eventually, is the mass of the ship, including what's installed on it, is going to have an impact on your overall speed and maneuverability. So technically, a Titan should be more nimble than a Stalker, because the rest of the hardware is exactly the same. The maneuvering thrusters and the primary thrusters. That being said, there's something else that you could probably do once the game gets a little bit more modularity in it, and that's you could technically keep the Stalker and just pull out those holding cells. Now, you're not necessarily going to have the magnetic floors unless you decide to actually install those, but you're going to have that level of modularity to where you can do what you want with the ship, kind of making it fill the different variant roles. So if you want to melt, you can melt, but I think I would probably stick it out with the Stalker just because I think the bounty, well, unless you're wanting to do cargo, or if you know you're not going to do any bounty hunting, but you could really go either way, and I think you're going to see performance increase when the ship gets lighter, regardless of how you get to doing that. On the last question for this video, AtomBomb42X says, Youngblood, I'd like to get your thoughts on using a Gemini in the role of piracy, not for stopping a ship, but for transferring the booty. I figure that it can defend itself if needs be, can refuel our little pirate fleet, and can transport the stolen goods. We have a Harbinger. I want to go after big prey. I figure that smaller cargo ships like the Cutlass Freelancer and Caterpillar won't be able to hold enough cargo. I know this is a lot of guesswork, but I'd like to hear your opinion. I have not really thought about the Gemini in a piracy transport role, but I think it would absolutely do a great job of being kind of a center point ship in a pirate fleet. Like you mentioned, you can keep your other ships fueled up. It's got massive turret guns on top. It's got other turrets. It's got big shields. It's got reinforced hulls, and it carries a lot of cargo. So I think that's an outstanding option, an A+ for thinking outside the box, because I like that a lot. That being said, the Caterpillar should hold a lot of cargo and would be a really good option as well. I can see what you're talking about with the Cutlass and Freelancer, though. So, good thinking. I like that, Atom Bomb. So, that's it for this one. Like I said, I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter just to crank out more of them. So, stay tuned for more content coming very soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.